I'm truly excited, honored to be here, and I'd like to thank the Missing Salmon Alliance. I don't think I'm ever going to forget that our emergency muster station is on London Bridge. That's something I'm taking away with me. Mark talks about us working together in the future. We've been working together for the last 18 months. And I think a definition of insanity is when you keep trying the same thing over and over again and expecting to get a different result. And I think I was here a year ago where the kernel of this idea around the Missing Salmon Alliance came together, and we were discussing where we might go with the International Year of the Salmon, which was similarly started from this idea that things aren't working right now. How can we do things differently? And NASCO and the organization that I work for, the North Pacific Anadromous Fish Commission, people said, well, it's not the right time. I mean, government is getting smaller. And we said, well, if it isn't the right time right now, when will it be? And we started with no money, and we patterned it after the International Polar Year, which literally has billions of dollars. And we said, that doesn't matter. Regardless, we've got to start doing this thing. And it's starting to... Try one more time. There we go. And it's starting to work. So this is an audience that was brought together today to think about how are we going to save Atlantic salmon? Well, so why is some guy from the Pacific up here talking to you? And I'm going to make the case today that I'm here for a number of reasons. A couple of them are serendipitous, and others are mainly related to the fact that we've realized that we have exactly the same problems on the Pacific as you do on the Atlantic. Slightly different versions, different mechanisms, and I know you have no sympathy for me when we literally have millions of salmon left in the North Pacific. But the reality is, from south to north, on the Asian side as well as on the eastern side of the North Pacific, we're losing our populations. It's a downward trend. Interestingly, it started the same time as the decline in the sort of late 80s and early to mid 90s. You were starting to lose productivity of your salmon. The same thing was happening in the Pacific. And our scientists have never been really brought together to say, why is that happening? And so those are the kinds of basic questions that we can collaborate on. So it comes down to trust. It comes down to connections among people that are willing to work together. Most of you, I know at least a couple of people in the room that know this is Dr. Dick Beamish, a scientist from the Canadian Department of Fisheries and Oceans, whose original idea, it was his original idea for the Year of the Salmon 10 years ago. And he said, we're not doing things right. We haven't been in the high seas for 20 years. We don't understand the mechanisms that we need to understand in the Pacific to manage salmon. And he said, we need to get back into the high seas, and to do that, we need to have an International Year of the Salmon to promote it. And so we thought about it for 10 years. But when it comes to thinking about what we were going to do about that International Year of the Salmon, Dick knew we had to do things differently. He also went on to understand, as we started to plan the International Year of the Salmon, that governments and other agencies were not going to move fast enough on this thing. So he took it on himself to raise 1.3 million Canadian, not that much in pounds, but to hire a Russian research vessel that went to sea in March of 2019 and took for the first time a crew of 21 scientists from the five countries that participate in our organization. He just said, we're going to do this if they can't get it together. And what that's done is generated the interest in making things happen. Now we've got the countries interested, and in 2021, we're moving to take 5 vessels to sea to go right across the Pan-Pacific to understand the mechanisms. And these young scientists are working together, and we have a new cadre of scientists that are going to make a huge difference in our understanding of what's going on in the North Pacific. Similarly, it's people, so one person like that can make a huge difference. And when you start to go through, I should also say that working with Dick was the Pacific Salmon Foundation, similar to the Atlantic Salmon Trust and others, and the NGOs that are represented in this alliance. They're nimble, they're fast, they can put together organizations, an event like this, they can bring the political sphere, they can bring people along with them. And that's what Dick and Brian Riddle did, and now we're seeing it take off and move fast. Similarly, I think this is the start of exactly the same thing in the Atlantic. Ken Whalen, I've got a picture of him there, and this is sort of the serendipity in all of this. I went to NASCO for the first time about 4 years and people asked, oh, why the heck is this guy from the Pacific here? And I found like-minded people and people like Ken, and the idea of the likely suspects framework was in an Atlantic Salmon Research Board meeting. He was asking for 20,000 pounds to start the work, and I said, wait a minute, we're trying to do the same thing on the Pacific. Count us in, I'm in for 5,000 Canadian, so a few cents. But that was the start of the likely suspects and was the first project, and it was really still one of the driving projects behind the International Year of the Salmon. So there's a certain amount of serendipity, but it's led to a path that I think we can replicate and make a huge difference. It's not all sweetness and light in the Pacific. We're dealing with these heat waves that I know are, Europe has been hit with heat waves on the land mass. We happen to be being hit with heat waves in the ocean. And this is the 2015 when a heat wave called the Warm Blob hit the Pacific. There's where it hit. This is what the anomaly looked like in 2015. It's persisted for 3 years, and it's back again in 2019. 2019 was one of the worst years for salmon in the North Pacific. These heat waves the evidence is that they're going to continue. So we need to work together. So you say, okay, well, that heat wave was in the Pacific, who cares? At the same time that was in the Pacific, your cold blob off Greenland was starting to form and as a result of the melting ice on Greenland affecting the way our wind patterns work and how our oceanography drives at the productivity of salmon. Similarly, in the Sea of Okhotsk at the same time, there's a cold blob in the Sea of Okhotsk, which is detrimental to Japanese chum. So we're all in this together. These changing weather patterns that we've got are a reality, and we need to be working together. So I'm not going to go into all these, but we've got a whole raft of common threats that were put up in various talks this morning. Any one of these common threats, we're all doing work on it. Does it make sense that we're not talking to each other? It's a rare event when one of us gets funding to cross the distances that it takes to come between the Atlantic and the Pacific. But it's absolutely essential that we figure out how we can work together. The International Year of the Salmon, a 5-year initiative, again, not a lot of money in there, but a recognition that we need to figure out how to work differently. We don't have to solve all the problems, but we've got to align our institutions. NASCO and NPAFC have to know how to talk to each other. Academics need to be able to pick up the phone and know who the people that are working on telemetry problems or oceanography problems. So what we need is a common a salmon intelligence model, really. The military figured it out after 9/11 and said it's no good that we're not talking to each other. We need to know what our actions, what the decision makers need, and we need to get the information for them. We need to connect people and institutions. We need to generate knowledge, the knowledge we know we need to generate, and be able to react and generate the knowledge that hits us with the surprises. And we need to take action. How do we do that? It's by connecting through partnership. I saw a couple of slides like this. This partnership that you've got has a slide just like this. This is our North Pacific partnership steering committee that we have to bring academics and government and NGOs and private people together. You'll see NASCO in there and a few others that are represented in the room today. This is the partnership that works. You've got a partnership here that is going to give you what you need, especially in the freshwater. Salmon is about scale. You need to connect to the people on the ground, and you've got that in this room here. But you also need to connect to understand the ocean. You need to connect to big institutions like ICES, Pisces in the Pacific. We need to understand what's going in that ocean to inform to help you understand what to do and the efficacy of the work that you're doing in fresh water. We need to strengthen these ties that right now are fairly weak bonds. In the Pacific, we're chasing money right now for the likely suspects framework. We'd like to have a set of systems in the Pacific that mirror the work that you're doing already out here in the Murray Firth and the other projects. We want to work collaboratively on the methods and the modeling. We're going to continue to work on our High Seas project, and in fact, we've already brought people over from Norway to help us because they know how to do these large-scale projects and go to sea. So we're exchanging information. We need to make data available to our researchers. We need to mobilize data and people, and right now that's not easy to do, and there's technology to do it. There's additional technology around genomics that we can work together on, and we need to synthesize our knowledge. These are just a handful of workshops. There was probably triple that, workshops that took place where people don't exchange readily. We don't even know most of the workshops that happen in the Atlantic to be able to bring the knowledge forward rapidly. So I'm going to close with some action around this. We need to focus on informing our management decisions. We need to establish deep collaborative mechanisms and partnerships among organizations in the Pacific and the Atlantic. And we need to invigorate the collaborative mandate of our regional fishery management organizations like NASCO and like NPAFC. We need to invest in data mobilization. I want to congratulate again the Missing Salmon Alliance, because I know what's going to happen. Next year we're going to be back here and we're going to be an order of magnitude forward towards the goals that you've got. And I would ask that, and I know that we're going to continue to build and work on this partnership of scale right across the hemisphere. So thank you very much, everybody.